All right, welcome all, welcome all. Of course, I have my tea as always. So today I've done a lemon ginger tea mixed with a pomegranate white tea. Lemon ginger has probiotics and things like that. I've been eating a little bit bad. Sorry, not sorry. It was my birthday, and I decided to get some of my favorite Chinese food, which is super not healthy but tastes amazing. So now I'm gonna clean it out. Cheers. Anyway, what's life without being bad, huh? So, yeah. Anyway, here we are. This is episode 21, so welcome back. As you all know, I'm Chris Martino. Oh, that smells good. So, I think I'm going, let's see, this is year 18 as a martial arts veteran. And been in the healing realm for the last 5 years roughly. Um, love the Tao Te Ching, love the I Ching. What more can I say? That's me. So, hey, welcome, 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 welcome. This tea is still really hot. Not ready to drink it yet, but it smells great. So today I'm going to talk about five element theory, and of course I'm going to do verse 21, and then free flow throughout. So it's fall, it's autumn time. There's been a lot of emotional energy swirling around lately. Multiple people I know that I've talked to have been having big, heavy emotions, and some of them are breaking free and letting go, and some of them are, processing and going through them. But so the fall is this time of like letting go, but it's also this time of like almost like a spring cleaning, but it's a fall cleaning. So instead of spring cleaning for the new, you're kind of cleaning out the old junk, and the focus is on like where you've been, and then like kind of cleaning out some old junk, which gives you space going in the spring, but also kind of tidying up any loose ends. And this may look like a bill you didn't pay, or getting the tires checked on your car, or a paper you need to write for school, or a project you've been working on to wrap up. Because coming soon in the winter, we're really not going to have much energy. The winter time is about essentially hibernation, which is why it's great for meditation. Um, so there's not going to be a lot of energy. We're not really going to want to go out and be social and do all that. We're going to kind of just want to be to ourselves. We might want to read a little bit, do some meditation, but things are going to get kind of heavy. Wintertime is yin, the most yin. It's the yin of the yin. The autumn is the yang of the yin, but winter is the yin of the yin, and it is the most yin. So we're in the yang of the yin. We're kind of tightening things up, and we still have some energy. And it would be wise to kind of get outside and make the most of what's available. Kind of getting out there to do yard work, anything else you kind of want to tidy up and close up on before the year ends, or before the autumn ends and we enter into the winter, I should say. And then it kind of gets too cold where you don't really want to be outside anyway. Even if you live in a warmer climate, like here in New Orleans, it's very humid. So the cold isn't that it's just so low temperature cold, but it just pierces through your clothing, right? Which hits your kidneys and attacks your kidneys. So this time it's important for you to be drinking lots of water or tea. Black tea is great for this time of the year. So this correlates to the lungs. And I think I kind of hit on this the last episode or maybe the one before that. But the spice is good for the lungs, and the lung qi drops everything down. There'll be judgment in the air, so hopefully you're judging yourself and not others. It's always good to repeat things. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we're going to talk about five element theory. So what is five element theory? Well, wow, five element theory is used for many things. Five element theory is used in martial arts. So Xingyi is big. They have five fists, which correlate to the five element theory. They have the Pishuan, which is the metal element. They have Zhuanshuan, the water element. They have Bongshuan, the wood element or air. They have Paoshuan, the fire element, and they have Hongshuan, the earth element, which is the fifth and final, which is essentially a combination of the first four, with its own element flair to it, right? So the five element theory is massive in East in the Asian culture. So it's used in martial arts, as I explained, in the energetic healing realm, like in Chinese energetic medicine, it has correlations, and it's used the same way in the martial arts. It has correlations to organs of your body. For example, metal corresponds to the lungs, as I spoke on earlier, and fire. Well, let's go in order. So water corresponds to the kidneys, and wood or air corresponds to the liver, and fire corresponds to the heart, and earth corresponds to the stomach. Now those are the yin elements, but each yin part has a yang counterpart, right? So then if we talk about metal, we have the lungs, the yang organ, so that's the yin organ, the yang organ is the large intestine. And then you go into water, the bladder is the yang organ for water. It's the bladder, it's the yang to the kidney yin. And then you go into wood, and you have the liver is the yin, and the gallbladder is the yang, and fire. The heart is the yin, the small intestine is the yang, earth, the stomach is the yin, the spleen is the yang. I might have flip-flopped that. Sometimes I flip-flop the stomach and spleen. Anyway, so then each element has an association with an organ, with an emotion. Metal has this association, and you have like a negative emotion, and then you have like the positive emotion or like the virtue. So, not like the virtue, but the virtues. So the lungs, the metal element corresponds to sadness and grief, and the virtue for that is integrity. And then when you get into the esoteric side of things, it has a correlation to the Po, which is your corporeal soul. So it's the soul of your body, yeah. And then you have water, which has the emotion of fear, angst, fear. And the virtue is wisdom. From all the fears and the hardships you create, that's wisdom, because you learn something through the lesson. And then, so the kidneys correspond esoterically to the Zu, which is your will, your willpower, your will to do things. How strong-willed are you? Someone tells you no, will you persevere? Someone tells you no twice, will you persevere? Someone tells you no 3 times, will you keep going? Someone tells you no 100 times, will you keep pressing in? What are you going to do? That's your will. The teacher says stop and you don't want to. So after water comes wood or air. Some systems call it air, or even wind. The emotion for the liver is anger and frustration. And the virtue my brain just went blank. Let's have some more tea. So the liver has this ability of it circulates your chi, and esoterically it corresponds to the hum or the soul, but this is the etheric soul, not the corporeal soul. Corporeal, excuse me. It's the etheric soul. So the liver's spiritual virtue is that of compassion. Another word that I often like to use is this is more of a kind of like a worldly emotion is patience. Yeah, good liver you'll be patient, bad liver you won't. So next is fire, and fire has this correlation to the emotion of on the negative side of anxiety. It's this like, rising, it's this anxiousness. And the positive virtue is joy, inner peace, right? Immense joy, yeah. And then the next element is, the fire element has the spiritual correspondence to the shin, your spirit. And in fact, in traditional Chinese medicine, they look at the heart as the most important organ for the sense of if it goes, then it's connected to all the other organs and they're definitely going. But if the liver starts to go, it can affect the heart and it can affect the kidneys and it can affect the stomach because it's all interconnected, right? But it might only hit one first and then the other, and they'll work up to the heart. So the heart has it's like the center hub in a sense, if you will. And then you have the earth element, and that negative emotion is like worry. It's this this desire to want to be accepted. It's this feeling of non-acceptance and worry. Overthinking is another thing coming from the stomach spleen having issues, not being healthy. But on the positive end, the virtue, you have complete trust and faith in people and things and life and the universe and everything. Yeah. And its esoteric element is that of the E, the intention. So my will is like my gusto. That's not a perfect word, but it's a driving force in a sense. But my E is about my intention and attention. So, for example, my will might be if someone pushes me, I push them harder, and they push me harder, and I push them harder, and they push me harder, and I fall down, step back, and push me again. But my E says, you push me, and now I want to push you back. And my E, my intention of my pushback goes into pushing you onto the floor. So I push you in a certain way that you lose your balance when you step backwards and fall onto the floor. That's my intention was to push you down, if that makes sense. So, because sometimes people confuse like E and Z, but they're actually really quite different. And then when you talk about the liver, the hum, which actually the liver circulates the chi, which if you want to have good digestion, you need to have a good liver. Which if you have good chi circulation, then you'll have good energy, which gives you like this ability to do things because your chi is circulating well. So sometimes there can be a confusion with that between the hum, the z, and the e, because I know it was definitely very confusing for me, and I've heard it explained to multiple different teachers and their own spins on it, and that has really helped me to soak it in. So maybe you can find someone else explaining that. Okay, so five element theory, we've talked about organs, we've talked about emotions, we've talked about virtues. It's used throughout the seasons on the Taoist calendar. They use it to break up the seasons. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter in the US. So they have the same seasons, but then they have an interseason between the seasons roughly. And so you have spring has correlation to the wood element. It's about growth and new things and creative ideas and abilities and making connections. Excuse me. Oh, Chinese. And then you have summer, which is the maximum yang, and it's fire, and it's about really just getting out there and doing, and this vibrant, live energy, and there's this sexual side of the summer. The aphrodisiac, summer's a natural aphrodisiac, right? And then there's the fall. So summer is the fire element, and then there's the fall, autumn. And that has to do with like letting go and wrapping things up for the year and kind of starting to get to the inside of yourself and thinking about the year and maybe where you want to go and what you need to let go of. And it's softer and it's the end. And then you get into the winter, the water element, whereas the fall is metal, then the winter is water. And it is the most in, the deepest part of yourself. It's like looking into the abyss of a black hole, the depth of yourself, what's there, every single bit and piece of you, and how you think and how you feel and how you live and who you hang around with and your job and your things you've done in this world and all of this, what you're still doing. So in between those seasons is the earth element, which is about bringing everything together and coming down. It's taking, for example, everything you did in spring, the new lessons you learned between the transition from spring to summer, you start to settle that and embody and integrate that into you as you start to open back up into the summer. So that's another use of the five element theory. I mean, if you look at the Batsu, they use the five element theory. That's like a chart that kind of tells you, like a birth chart reading, tells you about who you are and your psyche and maybe where you're going to go and the elements and things that are present in your life and the components that make you. Anyway, the five element theory is present in so many different things, but that's all I'm going to talk about for today. Maybe more another time. So let's go on to verse 21. The appearance of virtue in its fullest exuberance is no more than the result of compliance with the Tao. The appearance of virtue in its fullest exuberance is no more than the result of compliance with the Tao. So, I mean, wow. Okay, the way I take that is someone seeing me as virtuous, the most virtuous they could ever see me is just a result of me rolling with the tide, being in the Tao, being empty and making observations. And well, if a person's empty and they can observe another person, they can connect with them very easy. Tao, considered as an entity, is obscure and vague. So I'd liken the Tao to a black hole. It's deep and vast, and it never really ends, and it's empty, but yet it has a structure, and it's full. It's obscure because it's weird. It's vague. It's not really much we know about it, right? Next line says vague and obscure. Yeah, within it there is form. That's really what I just said. Like a black hole. It has a certain pattern to it, right? A black hole has a certain pattern. But like the Tao, there's a certain pattern, but yet it's empty, right? But there's a pattern and a form and emptiness. Interesting, right? Yet within it, obscure and vague. So we have vague and obscure, yet within it there's form. Obscure and vague, yet within it there's substance. So black hole is empty, but yet it's not empty because it's made up of a bunch of matter, right? Vacuous and unfathomable. Vacuous, sucking you in, and unfathomable. You can't imagine what's in a black hole, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe they've done tests and there's things we don't know that they know now, but that's the idea. It's like you can't fathom where does a black hole begin and where does it end and what does it go to and all these things that, whatever. Maybe somebody knows more about it out there than I do, but to give you a reference, an example, the idea, think about Kirby. Kirby's fighting somebody, and he just sucks them in, and he turns into them. That's kind of the idea of like the Tao. It's funny because like the way I think about like emptiness and stuff like that is if I'm empty and I go meet up with somebody and they have a certain personality or characteristic, then I start to take on their personality and their characteristic just through spending time with them. That's why they say you are your 5 closest friends. Who you spend the most time with, the 5 closest friends you spend most. That's you're the sum and the culmination of those 5 people. Which there's actually a lot of truth to that. But you can't imagine. You can see, okay, yeah, you're making with those 5 people, but someone who didn't know you wouldn't know what element you got from which person, right? What part of you is person A, person B, person C, person D, person E. So, yet within it, there is quintessential energy, and this is supremely real. Within it, too, there's trustworthiness. Yeah, so I mean, it's like there's this idea in the Tao that's like, it's not that you're stupid, and you just blindly walk out there and like, I'm gonna trust everybody. No, I mean, you have gut feelings of like, yeah, this is a good person, they're gonna do right. No, they're not, and something feels weird. But initially, you have a trust in the universe, the world, the Tao, nature, whatever you want to say, that things are going to work out in your favor. And if they're not, the bump in the road was meant for you to learn a lesson, and that lesson works again in your favor ultimately. So everything comes back to this idea of like this sense of this idea of positivity and trust in what is, yeah, for whatever you want to call it. And there's definitely energy, and flowing with the rhythms. There's somewhere in the Tao it says about eat when you're hungry, sleep when you're tired, and walk when you feel you have energy. If you do this, you'll never get sick. Yeah, because you're going with the natural rhythms and harmony, right? You walk when the sun's up, not when the sun's down, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And this is just working with our natural biorhythms. So you have heaven, man, earth. So we're man. We follow the earth follows the heavens. The heavens are big planetary bodies of different types of energy, right? And those big masses of energy affect the earth. And then we're connected to the earth, and the earth, a bigger entity of energy, then affects us as people. So, and some people, there's the idea of the earth being a living entity, a living, breathing thing. Yeah. I mean, trees breathe out oxygen, we breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, trees breathe in carbon dioxide. It's really a mutual relationship with trees. But they're living, breathing things, and there's been tons of tests to show that they're conscious. And so the earth is this conscious being, this conscious entity, if you will. That's why we should take care of the earth as best as we can. But it's unfortunate. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of that going on. So kudos to those who are. And if you're not, perhaps do your part. From ancient down to modern times, its name has never been lost. But yet I can include in the range of my observation the whole of animate nature. So from ancient down to modern times, its name has never been lost. So what I know of, the Tao Te Ching dates back over 4,000 years ago. It's got started recording about 4,000 years ago, but it dates back further than that. By it, I can include in the range of my observation the whole of animate nature, right? So animate, alive, nature. I love to use the word observe because I think that's a big part of Tao is observation, a breadth, a wide array of perception, of just observing what is, not trying to push forward or create or make something a thing, just an observation of what is as it is such. But then you have to ask yourself, well, what is the lens to which you're observing? Because if you're observing through the lens of fear or worry or anger, you're going to see things a different way. If you're observing something through the lens of anger, you're going to see it your way no matter what, and you're going to find any and every reason to justify it. If you're observing it through worry, it's going to look like nothing's going to happen right, and you're just not going to fall in the right way, right? No matter what happens. Observing through fear, it's just like, I don't know, what should I do? You're afraid, like, what if I do this, or what if I do that? It's just you're observing through fear. Or sadness and grief. You see the world in a sad way, everything is bad, everything is awful. You're the world is awful. And not all of them are like that. Some people it's just a style, but some people have this negative kind of sad feel to them, right? Anyway, so what is the lens that you observe things through? But the Tao, the point of this statement, from my understanding, is that it says the Tao is inclusive of all animate nature, meaning essentially anything that's animated, right? So that's a lot. Just saying, wait, essentially I take out there's the Tao's and everything, just about, right? How am I cognizant of the acquiescence of animate nature in the Tao by the Tao itself? I love that because, and that's the end of it, by the way, chapter 21 or verse 21. By observing and being in the state of the Tao, then you can see the life and the movement and change and the expression and the breath of all things. But if you're too caught up in your brain and your mind, thinking about I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and this means this and that means that, and if you do this, that means this, and you only do this, and you don't understand this, or you don't understand that, or you don't understand me, or you don't understand life, or because it's based off set pattern of beliefs and morals and values. Or you can observe what is. How lively is an animal? What does the animal do? Why? Well, that's the tough part. Trying to figure out why, you'd have to figure out the being's brain of why it does it, right? A squirrel hoarding nuts, well, because it's getting ready to go in the tree for the wintertime. You know how you can figure that out? By observation. So with that, Gambe, cheers to next time, and hope you slow down and observe a little bit of life.